Hi, my name is Jackie, and one day, purely by accident, I hacked all the phones of my classmates. At first, I was even scared of the whole thing, but it's not power or even money that makes a person stronger and more confident, but information. I managed to use everything I found against my classmates. I wasn't particularly smart in class. I was not rich, but I wasn't poor, either. However, I never knew how to communicate with anyone, how to make friends. Of course, I wanted, like many kids, to be friends with someone, to race together in soccer, cheer for someone, watch movies together, or go to lunch. But I was deprived of all that. I don't know what the principle of making friends is, or how it happens at all. While my classmates were friends with each other, they only paid attention to me when they needed something from me. Hey Jackie, get my jacket. Hey Jackie, go to the market and get a drink. Jackie, you got any change? Give it to me. I'll give it to you later. It's like this every day. No one asked, hey, Jackie, how are you? Let's go to the movies. Let's go out to eat. Because no one cared. At my suggestion of hanging out at my house, my classmates' faces stretched. And I prepared myself, ordered food, asked my family for a sleepover. I had dreamed of celebrating my birthday with a rowdy bunch. And no one came, no one, so I went deeper into my friendship with my phone. Always walking around with headphones on, playing games. In my virtual world, I was class president, everyone loved me, I was very popular and everyone wanted to be friends with me. Since the real world was not for me, I decided to create my own. And I liked it a lot. In time, they almost stopped noticing me. They even stopped asking me to fetch, to serve, to buy. That suited me fine. I came to school, as usual, wearing headphones. I sat in my seat, and through the music, I heard someone yelling. My classmate Tina was crying that there was something wrong with her phone. No, how come? Why does it go away? Why won't it turn on? What if it won't turn on? My whole life is on there. How am I going to run my TikTok? I have so many subscribers and I don't even remember my password. It can be recovered. Recover what? Your iCloud and your TikTok. I mean, I'm gonna have everything deleted. Well, you backed it up, didn't you? I don't remember. It's usually set up automatically. I twiddled her phone in my hands, did a couple of simple manipulations, then backed it up, threw my iTunes on Mac, log out and log in again. Everything worked. Tina was a popular girl, but she didn't know anything about smartphones. She thanked me so much afterward in front of everyone, I felt a little embarrassed. In the evening, when I got home, I realized that I had saved her data on my computer. I wanted to delete everything at once, but I noticed an interesting correspondence in the chat room of classmates, where I was not. A few more people had problems with their phones and she offered my services, she even said to pay me, which I was glad. But then Steve entered the chat room. What a jerk. Considered to be the coolest in the class. But has nothing else but looks.
Tina, you just don't know how to use the phone properly.
I'm fine. Jackie's really good at this.
He's a dumb jerk, that's all. I know how to reset phones too.
Come on, then why didn't you help me out in the first place?
'Cause I didn't want to, and of course, this punk didn't say no. It's the first time anyone's ever needed him.
The anger was getting to my bones. I couldn't concentrate, I clenched my fists. I was so angry at Steve the jerk that I could barely keep from writing something. And then I thought, why don't I upload a virus to Tina's phone that only I can remove? Then everyone would respect me. I downloaded a special, more secure virus and tried to send it to Tina through a link. There was an ad for a party, and opening it gave me access to her device. But then something went wrong. The system sent the link to everyone in the chat room and within 4 minutes I had hacked into the phones of all my classmates. At first, I was confused, because now I could see everything, their photos, videos, correspondence. I listened to their calls and even when they turned off their phones or the internet, I could hear and see everything. Yes, I was scared, but quickly I remembered about Steve. I climbed in on him. The freak wasn't on a date with his girlfriend, and his girlfriend, you guessed it, was Tina. He was taking pictures on his phone with this other one. I copied these pics from his phone, of them kissing and immediately sent them from an unknown number to Tina. I was sorry, I didn't want to get her involved, but it just so happened that she was involved with him. She cried so bitterly, and in the morning she met Steve with a big slap and a kick between the legs. At that moment I felt joy. Steve wondered why, and I couldn't stop myself. I sent out an 18+ video of Steve and his other girlfriend. Turns out she was the principal's daughter. He was furious when he found out. Steve was expelled in just a couple of days. The school was a little quieter without him. I decided to make a move on Tina. I offered to carry her bag, but Anthony intervened. Tony, he'd been in love with her forever, but because of his friendship with Steve, he kept his distance. He nudged me with his shoulder and got ahead of me. I immediately found his weak spot. That evening, as he was walking Tina home, I texted him from Steve's number to tell him that his entire collection was over. Tony had a collection of music CDs, something of a rarity. He and my dad had been into it for over a decade. Tony got scared, dumped Tina, and took off without even saying anything. I kind of rode by on my bike, and we struck up a conversation. I gave her a ride and we had a nice chat. I knew I was falling in love with her, but to tell you the truth, I always liked her too. To keep Tony out of the way, I sent him a false message that it would be sunny and hot in a couple of days. I already knew how sensitive he was to light cold and rain. He got all wet and came down with pneumonia, and I still had days to hook up with Tina. But just as she and I started to get even closer, I see her correspondence with her friend Wei. She was texting her like, why the hell is she hanging out with me and what about Steve, or at least Tony? Tina replied that she hadn't decided anything yet, that we were just hanging out. Then Wei said she'd introduce her to another guy from high school tomorrow after school. Why the hell did she even bother? I did some digging on her. Wei wasn't a good driver. I was lucky her mom left her car at home that day and took a cab to work. When Wei was supposed to call that other guy, I texted her on behalf of her mother that she had been in an accident. She had supposedly been hit by a car and asked Wei to come to get her. Wei ran away. At this point, I invited Tina to the movies and disconnected her phone. I felt all powerful, just like dominating everybody. I was so glad I had pulled it all off. Now my dreams were starting to come true. Now my virtual world was becoming a reality. And I could control people any way I wanted. Wasn't that cool? I was the invisible king to whom they all obeyed. Tina and I had such a great time that night. Really, there was a surprise waiting at the end. There were police outside her house. Tina was scared. I ran with her, but it turned out that her friend Wei had been in a bad accident. She called Tina to help her, but I turned off her phone when she couldn't see.
Wei called you 6 times.
What about her? Where is she? Is she okay?
She's in a coma. We can only hope.
No, she can't be. It can't be. Tina was roaring so hard her ears were ringing. I was confused. I said goodbye to Tina and ran to the hospital myself. I saw Wei there and froze. Her mother was crying quietly, sitting next to her daughter. I came home, feeling uneasy. I stayed up all night. But in the morning, when we got to school, we found out that Tony had gotten worse. That night, he almost died from pneumonia. I looked at my hands and I even thought they were all bloody. I started to lose my mind. I was shaking all over. The teacher came up to me, but I shoved her. Suddenly I wanted to run away. That's not how I imagined it. I could have killed them both. Shit. I opened the classroom door, and there were cops standing there. They were after me. I knew it. I'd been arrested on charges of hacking, driving people to their deaths. My botched hacking had gone sideways for me. Now my folks are looking for money for an expensive lawyer, and I'm nothing. The only thing I'm glad for is that I didn't have time to maim more people. Maybe that's how my story was supposed to end. Yes?
Hello, everyone. My name is Brianna. What? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I heard what you were thinking. Yes, I can hear thoughts. Can you imagine? This is an incredible thing, and it happened to me very unexpectedly. As it turned out, in theory, instead of dying, I got this kind of gift. Well, I'll tell you all about it. In the meantime, guys, like the video, immediately subscribe to the channel, and write your opinion under the video. I will be interested in reading them. Let's get started. This happened last year, when I was returning home with my little brother Tommy after a walk in the park. I promised him I'd give him a ride on the roller coaster just so he wouldn't shoot me at my parents. Small witnessed how a guy came to me late one night and I pretended to go to bed and I walked with him. So he gave me a condition. Either I take him to the park or he tells my parents everything. Well, in general, I began to save money for his slides. Although, to be honest, we had a fun day. I probably haven't been alone with him for a long time. He usually pisses me off with what he puts up with, but that day was different, and Tommy and I talked a lot. I didn't think we'd have anything to talk about before, but it turned out that there was plenty. I even got to know my brother better. After the walk, tired and satisfied, we decided to go eat. Tommy was hungry and we ate burgers on the way. When we were 3 houses away from the house, a dog we didn't know came running out from behind the bushes. It was huge. I shielded my brother, who immediately threw our food to the dog. The dog attacked the burgers, and while she was eating them, we quickly stepped forward. A moment later, I heard the dog running toward us, foaming at the mouth. She wanted to bite Tommy, but I blocked him. Suddenly, I felt a sharp pain in my leg. The dog bit into my leg right on the hip. I screamed so loud that all the neighbors and even my mother ran out. Seeing the picture threw everyone into shock. My mother immediately rushed to us. She threw a slipper at the dog, but she did not let go. I was screaming in pain, and my brother was shaking all over, but I kept protecting him. Suddenly, a neighbor ran out with a shovel and hit the dog, so he ran away somewhere. Whose dog it was, we still don't know. I was bleeding. The dog had bitten through an important artery, and I was losing blood fast. It's good that the neighbors called an ambulance, which quickly took me away. An urgent transfusion was required. I passed out, and when I came to, it turned out that I had a transfusion. Only one nurse came to see me often. At first, I didn't understand why she was so nervous at the sight of me, and then I accidentally heard that she had transfused me with the wrong blood type. Against the background of unfamiliar antigens, I became ill the very next day. I had a fever and couldn't get up. It was so bad. I couldn't even tell my mom because I couldn't open my mouth. I cursed the nurse in my head. She, by the way, ran away from work, somewhere unknown, just like that dog. Surprisingly, on the third day, I became much better. I even remember how a boy flew into my room. He brought me my favorite French fries and iced tea. I knew how much he also adored potatoes, and the fact that he brought them safely only for me, I was very pleased. Tommy was sorry it had happened, but I wasn't. How could I have done anything else? He's my little brother. Tommy leaned into me and rested his head on my stomach. A few minutes later, I heard his faint sobs. "I could have lost you. You almost died because of me," he said. "Don't ever say that again, Tommy. I wouldn't die for you," I told him, and he slowly raised his head and stared at me with round eyes. "I didn't say anything," he said to me timidly. "I was just thinking about it." At that moment, a slight chill passed over my skin, and I suddenly began to panic a little, just like Tommy himself. He looked at me as if I were an alien, and I put it all down to an accident, saying that I just blurted it out at random. He pretended to calm down, but the feeling of unease remained. When Tommy went home, I was still thinking about this situation. Confident that I wasn't crazy because I could clearly hear these sentences in his voice, I decided to test the theory and went down to the cafeteria. There were a lot of people there, and everyone was busy either eating or thinking, just what I needed. I helped myself to tea and lunch and sat down at the furthest table. I looked at the people around me, but I didn't understand or hear anything. At some point, I even thought that I really just imagined it. I finished my meal and went back to the room. Just then, my doctor came. He told me that my condition had improved dramatically, and this is extremely rare. We chatted, and the doctor started to leave. Finally, he suddenly said that I was very beautiful. I was embarrassed. Doc himself was a young guy, and he was very good-looking. At that moment, I was sure he hadn't said it out loud. I suddenly wanted to ask again, but I didn't. I decided to give myself time to sort myself out a bit. As a result, I arrived home a few days later. My life was back on track, but my abilities were also back on track. A couple of days after I was discharged, I heard my mother talking to someone on the phone. She was swearing loudly, but then I walked past her and saw her sitting at the table with her head down. My mother's hands fiddled with a glass of water, and I said clearly, "I'm not going to let this stuff ruin our business. I'll do my best. So first of all, I will tell Frank. This is my father." Then she grabbed the phone and dialed Dad. I could see that my mother's lips didn't move, but I could hear her words. Yes, it was still creepy and scary, but I did not react as much as before. Then I started listening to my brother, my father, and my mother again. I did not always succeed, but I kind of trained myself, and over time, I learned to hear not only relatives, but even neighbors. I guess you could call my gift psychic or something. Do not consider it stupid or fictional, because everything can happen in this world. I do not know how much longer I will have this gift, but while I have it, I am considering how to use it correctly and best.